The sleek transport vessel docked at Zentari Central Command with barely a sound. Inside the grand obsidian structure, Grechthel waited patiently in the assignment chamber. His scaled skin reflected the dim purple lighting as he stood at perfect attention, forearms positioned in the formal stance of the elite assassination corps. Commander Vexnor entered the room, his superior height and elaborate facial ridges marking his high status. He carried a small data cube between his clawed fingers. "Assassin Grechthel, your service record continues to impress," Vexnor said. 27 successful eliminations across 12 star systems. No witnesses, no evidence, no failures. Grechthel bowed slightly. "I serve the Confederation with precision, Commander." "Indeed, which is why you have been selected for this assignment." Vexnor placed the data cube on the central platform. It projected a holographic image of a human male with short brown hair and plain features. "Your target is a human called Jack Miller. He serves as a diplomatic aide at the Interspecies Embassy on Proxima Station." Grechthel studied the image carefully. He had eliminated 2 humans before, both simple tasks. Humans were known across the galaxy for their fragile bodies and lack of natural defenses. "What has this human done to require elimination?" Grechthel asked. "He possesses classified intelligence regarding our military operations in the Orion sector. Intelligence that could damage Zentari interests across 3 star systems if revealed." The commander's voice lowered. "The information is stored in his neural implant, which will need to be extracted after elimination." Grechthel nodded. "Standard human biological profile?" Commander Vexnor activated another display showing human anatomical details. "Yes. The usual weaknesses. No protective exoskeleton, thin skin easily penetrated, limited sensory awareness, relatively slow reflexes, and poor night vision. Their only notable physical advantage is their endurance, but that hardly matters. In close quarters elimination. Extraction window. You have 8 standard cycles to complete the mission. The human follows predictable routines which should make planning simple." Vexnor handed over a small equipment case. "Standard mission kit, plus specialized tools for human neural implant extraction." Grechthel opened the case and examined the contents. Among the various weapons, surveillance devices, and specialized tools lay a small silver capsule, the suicide pill that every Zentari assassin carried on human-targeted missions. "Is the termination implant really necessary for such a simple target?" Grechthel asked, picking up the pill. The commander's face shifted into what Grechthel recognized as an expression of ancestral discomfort. "It is standard protocol for all human-targeted missions. But surely for a diplomatic aide, protocol is protocol," Vexnor interrupted sharply. "The pill remains part of your equipment." Grechthel placed the pill in the specialized pouch under his tongue, where it could be easily accessed in an emergency. He didn't understand the necessity. The suicide pill was usually reserved for missions targeting military leaders or planetary governors who might capture and interrogate an assassin, not for eliminating soft targets like human diplomats. "Your transport to Proxima Station leaves in 3 hours. Study the mission files thoroughly before departure." The commander turned to leave but paused at the door. "And Grechthel, do not underestimate this target." "A human diplomat?" Grechthel couldn't keep the surprise from his voice. "Just follow protocol." With that final instruction, the commander left. Grechthel gathered his equipment and headed toward the preparation chambers. As he walked through the sleek corridors of Central Command, another assassin approached him. Mevrath, a veteran with scale markings that showed his advanced age and experience. "Heard you got a human assignment," Mevrath said quietly, falling into step beside him. "Yes, seems straightforward enough." The older assassin made a clicking sound with his throat plates, the Zentari equivalent of a humorless laugh. "That's what they always say. First time hunting a human?" "Third," Grechthel replied. "The previous 2 were simple. Military targets? No, a trade representative and a mining supervisor." Mevrath nodded slowly. "Not the same as their diplomatic corps. Those ones, they're different." Grechthel slowed his pace. "Different how?" The file describes a routine elimination. The older assassin looked around to ensure they weren't overheard. I've been on 7 human-targeted missions. Lost 3 team members over the years. The thing about humans is they're not what they appear to be. They appear to be soft-skinned prey with no natural weapons, Grechthul said with confidence. Exactly the problem. Mevrath's voice dropped even lower. We evolved as predators, with every natural advantage clearly displayed. Humans evolved as prey that became predators. They hide their true capabilities. Grechthul wanted to dismiss the warning as the superstition of an aging assassin, but Mevrath's perfect mission record commanded respect. What should I expect, he asked. Unpredictability. Humans have a saying, backed into a corner. It refers to how they become most dangerous when they have no escape route, and they're adaptable in ways that defy logic. The older assassin touched the pouch under his jawline where his own suicide pill rested. There's a reason we carry the pill when hunting humans, there always has been. The commander wouldn't explain when I questioned it. Because the official explanation would cause panic. The pill isn't just to prevent capture. Mevrath's eyes darkened. It's to prevent what happens after capture. Before Grechthul could ask for clarification, a senior officer rounded the corner, and Mevrath smoothly changed his posture and tone. Good hunting, young one. May your blade strike true. He continued down the corridor without looking back. 3 hours later, Grechthul sat aboard the transport vessel as it pulled away from Central Command. He had reviewed the mission files twice, memorizing Jack Miller's daily routines, the layout of Proxima Station, and potential extraction points. The human visited the same food establishment every morning, exercised in the station's recreation area at precisely the same time each day, and took the same route back to his quarters each evening. His behavior patterns showed the predictability typical of humans who seem to crave routine. Yet as the ship entered hyperspace, Grechthul found himself unconsciously touching the suicide pill in its pouch. Mevrath's warning echoed in his mind. The most successful assassins in the Confederation didn't ignore warnings from veterans. Computer, he said, display all available historical data on human diplomatic personnel. Warning, the computer responded. Full historical data. Requires command-level access. Grechthul frowned. Display publicly available data only. As he read through the limited information, a pattern began to emerge. Over the past 80 cycles, multiple assassins had been assigned to human diplomatic targets. The success rate was notably lower than for other species. Many of the files ended with the same designation. Operative lost. Mission incomplete. The pill suddenly felt heavier under his tongue. Proxima Station hung in space like a giant metal flower, its 5 arms extending from a central hub. From his small observation post in the commercial sector, Grechthul watched the crowds move through the wide corridors. 3 days had passed since his arrival, and he had established a perfect surveillance network around his target. Jack Miller was exactly as described in the mission files. The human stood at average height for his species, with nothing remarkable about his appearance. He wore the simple blue uniform of the diplomatic corps and moved with the casual confidence typical of humans who felt safe in their environment. Grechthul had placed tiny camera drones throughout Miller's daily route. They transmitted to his portable viewer, allowing him to track the human's movements from multiple angles. The pattern was clear. The human was a creature of habit. Every morning, Jack Miller left his quarters at precisely 0700 hours. He would get a beverage at a small shop called Morning Brew, then report to the embassy by 0730. At 1200 hours, he took lunch, usually alone, reading something on his datapad. At 1800 hours, he left work and went for exercise in the station's recreation area. By 1930, he would be back in his quarters. On the 4th day, Grechthul identified his opportunity. The recreation area included an arboretum section, a place where plants from various worlds grew in carefully controlled environments. Miller jogged through this section daily, and part of his route passed through a dense area of Terran bamboo, with minimal surveillance coverage, perfect for an ambush. Grechthul prepared his weapons carefully. For humans, He selected a nerve toxin injector, quick, silent, and untraceable. He dressed in civilian clothes that would blend with the station's population and applied a scent-masking compound to his skin. Humans had poor sensory awareness, but sometimes they could detect the natural musk of Zentari skin. At 1815 hours, Grekthul positioned himself inside the bamboo grove. The thick green stalks provided excellent cover, creating shadows where his scaled form could remain hidden. He activated his cloaking field, not full invisibility but enough to blur his outline in the dim light of the arboretum. His viewer showed Miller entering the recreation area right on schedule. The human changed into exercise clothing and began his usual route. Grekthul calculated the timing. Miller would reach the bamboo section in approximately 6 minutes. While waiting, Grekthul reviewed the extraction plan. After eliminating the target, he would have roughly 2 minutes to remove the neural implant from behind the human's left ear. Then he would activate the body dissolution compound that would leave no evidence. His escape route would take him through the maintenance tunnels to a cargo bay where a commercial transport was scheduled for departure. Simple, efficient. Like most of his assignments, the soft sound of footsteps on the path alerted him. Grekthul tensed his muscles, ready to strike. Through the gaps in the bamboo, he caught glimpses of Miller's blue exercise clothes. The human maintained a steady pace, breathing evenly, completely unaware of the danger. 3 steps. 2 steps. 1. Grekthul launched forward with precise timing. Toxin injector extended toward the exposed neck of his target. His movement was silent, his aim perfect. 4 centuries of evolutionary development as an apex predator made his species the galaxy's most efficient hunters. But the human moved. Not a startled jump or a frightened stumble, but a fluid, practiced sidestep that seemed impossible for someone who hadn't detected his approach. Before Grekthul could adjust his trajectory, a hand gripped his wrist with surprising strength. His momentum was suddenly used against him, and he found himself flipping through the air. He landed hard on his back, the impact knocking air from his breathing sacs. The toxin injector had somehow been removed from his grasp. As he tried to recover, a weight pressed down on his chest, and he looked up to see Jack Miller calmly sitting on him, holding the injector. "Let me guess," the human said in a conversational tone. "Zentari Confederation?" Grekthul hissed and tried to activate his secondary defense mechanisms, the retractable claws in his lower arms, but the human had somehow pinned those limbs in a position that prevented their use. "You guys really need to update your intelligence," Miller continued, examining the injector with professional interest. "I haven't been a diplomatic aide for 12 years. Grekthul struggled but found himself unable to break free. The human's strength was far greater than indicated in any Zentari database on human physiology. "Who are you?" Grekthul demanded. Miller smiled slightly. "Former Captain, Earth Special Forces, Elite Diplomatic Security Division. Diplomatic aid is just my cover." He tilted his head. "Though I'm surprised it took your people this long to send someone. I've had that neural data for almost a decade." Grekthul's mind raced. The mission file had been wrong. Completely wrong. This wasn't a soft target. This was a trained human soldier. "Now," Miller said calmly, "we're going to discuss why the Zentari Confederation wants me dead, and exactly what they think I know." In a desperate move, Grekthul activated his emergency distortion field, a painful process that temporarily altered his skeletal structure. The sudden change in his body shape created just enough space for him to twist free of the human's grip. The maneuver would cost him. Biological distortion always resulted in tissue damage, but survival took priority. He rolled away and sprang to his feet, ignoring the burning pain spreading through his joints. Without his injector, he pulled a tau vibroblade from his boot. Miller stood calmly, making no move to pursue. Impressive. Most species would have dislocated something important doing that. "You are not what you appear to be," Grekthul said, backing toward the thicker bamboo where he might find cover. "That's humanity's greatest defense," Miller replied. "You evolved to show your weapons. We evolved to hide ours." A station-wide alert suddenly blared through the arboretum. Security had been activated. Miller hadn't been alone. He'd had a backup team tracking Grechthul all along. "You should run," Miller advised. "Security will be here in about 40 seconds. They're not as nice as I am." Grechthul didn't wait. He turned and sprinted through the bamboo, abandoning his equipment in favor of speed. His mission was compromised, but he could still escape and report the critical intelligence failure to Central Command. As he ran, he accessed his emergency transmitter and sent a coded message. "Target misidentified. Extraction required. Security compromised." He made it to the maintenance tunnels just as the security teams flooded the arboretum. Using his climbing abilities, he scaled a vertical shaft to an upper level and found an access point to the station's less monitored cargo section. In a small storage closet, Grechthul finally paused to assess his injuries. The distortion field had torn muscle fibers throughout his body. He applied emergency healing gel to the worst areas and considered his options. His mission had failed. The target was aware and alert. Station security was activated. And worst of all, Jack Miller knew exactly who had sent Grechthul. He checked his transmitter. No response from Central Command. Following protocol, he activated his backup communications device and accessed the secure Zentari network on the station. He needed to learn everything possible about Jack Miller and the elite diplomatic security division. What he found made his blood run cold. The human wasn't just a security officer. He was a renowned hunter of assassins, specifically Zentari. Assassins. 6 previous elimination attempts had been made against Miller over the past decade. None had succeeded. 3 of the assassins were listed as captured. Grechthul's tongue automatically touched the suicide pill in its pouch. Now he understood Mevrath's warning. The pill wasn't just tradition, it was protection against what Miller would do if he captured Grechthul alive. Grechthul moved through the dimly lit maintenance corridors of Proxima Station's lower levels. 6 hours had passed since his failed attempt on Jack Miller. His wounds burned despite the healing gel, and fatigue pulled at his muscles. Still, he pushed forward. The safe house was located in a forgotten section of the station, an area between 2 repurposed cargo bays that didn't appear on most station maps. The Zentari intelligence network had established these hidden spots on nearly every major outpost in the galaxy. When he finally reached the unmarked door, Grechthul pressed his palm against the scanner hidden behind a loose panel. The door slid, open with a soft hiss. Inside was a small room with basic supplies, medical equipment, weapons, communication devices, and emergency rations. Grechthul sealed the door and fell into the reinforced chair designed for Zentari physiology. He needed to heal and plan his next move. The emergency medical kit contained more advanced treatments than the field supplies he carried. He applied cellular regeneration patches to the torn muscle tissue and drank a nutrient solution that would speed the healing process. As his body began to recover, he accessed the secure communication terminal. No response had come from his earlier transmission to Central Command. That was unusual. Protocol required acknowledgement within 2 hours of an emergency signal. He sent another message. Mission compromised. Target identified as hostile operative. Request immediate extraction. While waiting for a response, Grechthul accessed the terminal's secure database. He needed more information about Jack Miller and the elite diplomatic security division. The file he found was surprisingly thin. Just basic information about a human military unit that provided protection for diplomatic personnel. But Grechthul was one of the Confederation's top assassins, with access to deeper levels of the intelligence network. He bypassed the standard security protocols and entered his highest clearance codes. What he found disturbed him deeply. The elite diplomatic security division wasn't just a protection unit. It was a specialized branch of Earth's military designed specifically to counter assassination attempts from non-human species. And they had been studying Zentari assassins for decades. The files contained detailed anatomical information about Zentari physiology, pressure points, weak spots in their scales, limitations of their vision. There were combat techniques developed specifically to counter Zentari natural advantages. Most disturbing were the interrogation protocols, methods designed to extract information from captured Zentari operatives. Grechthul looked deeper into Jack Miller's personal file. The human had served for 15 years in active field operations before taking his cover position at the embassy. During that time, he had personally captured 3 Zentari assassins and neutralized 7 others. The file included a psychological profile that made Grechthul's skin tighten with ancestral fear. Subject demonstrates exceptional patience and methodical pursuit patterns. Unlike most humans, Miller shows no signs of emotional distress during combat or capture operations. He approaches hunting alien assassins with the same calm demeanor others might bring to routine tasks. Now, Grechthul understood why his mission had gone wrong so quickly. Miller had known he was coming. The human had probably been aware of Grechthul's presence since his arrival on the station. The predictable routine had been bait. A soft beep from the terminal drew his attention. A message from Central Command had finally arrived. Grechthul opened it with relief. The message was brief. Operative Grechthul. Mission status updated to disavowed. No extraction authorized. Protocol 27 is now in effect. Confederation denies all knowledge of your activities. Grechthul stared at the message in shock. Protocol 27 was the abandonment directive, used when an operation was compromised beyond recovery. The Confederation had cut him off completely. He was alone on a station with a human who specialized in hunting his kind. Grechthul's training took over. If extraction wasn't coming, he needed to find his own way off the station. He accessed the station's transport schedule. A cargo ship was departing for the Rigel system in 10 hours. If he could reach it undetected, he might escape. First, he needed to understand how Miller was tracking him. Grechthul ran a full scan of his equipment and body for tracking devices. The scan came back clean. Then he realized the station itself was helping Miller. He pulled up the station's security protocols on the terminal. In the last 6 hours, the security patterns had changed completely. Blind spots he had mapped were now covered by new sensors. Patrol routes had been altered. Even the maintenance corridors showed increased monitoring. Miller was using his authority to transform the entire station into a trap. Grechthul needed to move. This safe house was secure for now, but he couldn't risk staying in one place too long. He gathered essential supplies, treated his injuries one final time, and prepared to leave. Before departing, he sent one more message to Central Command. Request all available information on human hunting techniques and counter strategies. The response came back almost immediately. Access denied. Your credentials have been revoked. They had truly abandoned him. As Grechthul prepared to exit the safe house, the terminal suddenly activated on its own. A message appeared on the screen. I know you're in there, Grechthul. The Zentari safe house network was compromised 3 years ago. We've been watching you since you arrived. The message was signed simply, Jack. Panic flooded Grechthul's system. How was this possible? The safe houses were the most closely guarded secret of Zentari intelligence operations. He grabbed his equipment and rushed to the door, only to find the control panel dark and unresponsive. The safe house was sealed from the outside. A new message appeared on the terminal. We should talk about why your people want me dead. I'm giving you 2 hours to consider your options. After that, station security will breach the room with stun weapons. Surrender would be less painful, Grechthul hissed in frustration. The human was playing with him, treating him like trapped prey. He examined the room for alternative exits. The ventilation system was too small for his body. The walls were reinforced, metal. The door was designed to withstand forced entry, which also meant it effectively prevented escape. He was trapped, but not helpless. Grechthul was an elite assassin with decades of training. If he couldn't escape, he would prepare for confrontation. He began converting the safe house into a battleground, setting traps and preparing defensive positions. As he worked, he thought about the suicide pill still secure in its pouch under his tongue. The mission had failed. By Zentari protocol, he should take it rather than risk capture. But something burned inside him, a refusal to accept defeat. If he was going to die, it would be fighting, not cowering in fear of what the humans might do to him. The terminal beeped again. A new message appeared. Your Central Command abandoned you because they know what I found on Septaris 9. They know what I saw them doing to those colonies. Your neural extractor wouldn't have found anything in my head. The data was never there. I needed to lure one of you here so we could have this conversation. Grechthel froze. Septaris 9 was a restricted information zone in Zentari records. Whatever had happened there was classified at the highest levels. What exactly did this human know? And why was Central Command so afraid of him revealing it? The lights in the safe house dimmed suddenly. Grechthel tensed, gripping his vibroblade tightly. He had spent the last hour setting traps across the room, pressure sensors near the door that would trigger toxic gas releases, makeshift explosives, from the safe house supplies and simple physical traps designed to incapacitate. It wasn't enough. He knew it wasn't enough. The terminal screen lit up again with a new message. Your 2 hours are up. I'm coming in alone. Station security remains on standby. Grechthel positioned himself in the shadows behind the door. If Miller entered first, Grechthel might have a chance to strike quickly and escape in the confusion. His body was still damaged from the earlier distortion field use, but adrenaline-equivalent chemicals now flooded his system. The door control panel blinked from red to green. Someone had overridden the lock. As the door began to slide open, Grechthel activated his natural camouflage abilities. His scales shifted color to match the shadows around him, not perfect invisibility, but enough to confuse human eyes in the dimmed lighting. The door opened fully, but no one entered. Instead, a small metallic sphere rolled into the room. Grechthel recognized it immediately, a neural disruptor designed to overload sensory systems. He leapt away, but not quickly enough. The device activated with a high-pitched whine that human ears couldn't detect but that sent waves of pain through Zentari audio receptors. Grechthel stumbled, his balance systems temporarily disrupted. Jack Miller stepped through the doorway. The human wore a simple black tactical suit without obvious weapons. His movements were careful but confident. The neural disruptor is calibrated, specifically for Zentari physiology, Miller said calmly. We've had plenty of time to study how your nervous system works. Grechthel fought through the disorientation and launched himself at the human. Vibroblade extended. His natural attacking speed should have been enough to catch even a trained opponent off guard. But Miller moved with practiced precision, sidestepping the attack and striking Grecthel's arm at exactly the spot where pressure would cause temporary nerve paralysis. The blade clattered to the floor as Grecthel's right arms went numb. Your left anterior scale junction is still healing from your earlier escape tactic, Miller observed. You're favoring your right side to compensate. Classic Zentari adaptation. Pattern? Grechthel hissed in surprise. The human wasn't just trained. He understood Zentari biology and fighting techniques at an expert level. How do you know so much about us? Grechthel demanded, circling warily. We've been studying your kind for generations, Miller replied. Every failed assassination attempt teaches us more. Every captured assassin provides new insights. Grechthel triggered one of his traps, a concealed launcher that fired poison darts from behind Miller. The human somehow sensed the danger and dropped flat to the floor without even looking back. The darts embedded harmlessly in the wall. Toxin projector from your left, Miller said, rolling smoothly back to his feet. You hit it well, but the activation makes a distinctive clicking sound. The third Zentari assassin I caught used the same technique. Rage and frustration boiled within Grechthel. He charged forward, using all four arms in a complex attack pattern that should have overwhelmed any opponent. His upper arms struck high while his lower arms aimed for vulnerable points in the human's abdomen. Miller blocked the high strikes and twisted away from the low ones. His movements weren't faster than Grecthel's, but they were precisely calculated to counter Zentari attack patterns. Your people have been sending assassins after humans for over a century, Miller said, his voice still unnervingly calm despite the intense combat, always with the same results. Grechthel triggered his second trap, an electrical surge through the metal flooring where Miller stood. The human jumped at the exact moment the charge activated, landing safely on an insulated section of floor. Floor trap was clever, Miller acknowledged. If I hadn't seen the power rerouting on the station systems, you might have caught me. Grechthel backed away, breathing heavily. His body wasn't fully healed, and the constant exertion was taking its toll. He needed to change tactics. "What happened on Septeris 9?" he asked, trying to buy time to recover. "Why do you think our command abandoned me?" Something shifted in Miller's expression, a slight softening. 3 years ago, I was embedded as an observer during the peace negotiations between the Septeris colonies and the Rigelian Commerce Guild. Your confederation sent operatives to ensure those negotiations failed. Grechthel kept his expression neutral, but his mind raced. This information was unknown even to most high-level Zentari officials. "I witnessed your commanders order the massacre of 60,000 civilians," Miller continued. "Made to look like a Rigelian attack. The evidence I gathered was encrypted and stored off-station, not in my neural implant as your commanders believed." "Why would we interfere with a minor trade negotiation?" Grechthel challenged, slowly moving toward his final trap trigger. "Because the Septeris colonies sit on top of the largest deposit of quantum-stabilized iridium in the quadrant," Miller replied. "Your confederation couldn't risk them allying with the Rigelians." Grechthel reached the control panel and activated his final trap, explosive charges set in the ceiling above. "Miller, the blast would bring down enough debris to incapacitate the human. Nothing happened. I disabled your explosives while you were treating your injuries," Miller said. "You underestimated how long we've been watching this safe house." Grechthel snarled in frustration. Every advantage, every trick, every trap had been anticipated and countered. The human had been several steps ahead the entire time. In desperation, Grechthel lunged forward, abandoning technique for pure aggression. Miller met the attack with calm efficiency, using Grecthel's momentum against him once again. A precise strike to a nerve cluster in Grecthel's back sent paralyzing pain through his lower body. Grechthel collapsed to the floor, his legs temporarily useless. He tried to crawl away, but Miller placed a foot firmly on his back. "Your people trained you to be the perfect predator," Miller said. "But humans evolved alongside predators. We've been prey for most of our history, which taught us to recognize and counter predatory behavior." Grecthel's tongue automatically touched the suicide pill in its pouch. Now was the time to use it. Capture meant interrogation. Interrogation by humans who knew Zentari physiology intimately. "You're wondering about the pill," Miller said, seeming to read his thoughts. "Wondering if you should take it now." "How do you know about that?" Grechthel asked, genuinely surprised. "Because every Zentari assassin carries one when hunting humans. It's your species' acknowledgement of what happens when the tables turn." Miller removed his foot and stepped back. "But I'm not going to torture you for information, if that's what you fear." Grechthel turned slowly, confused by the human's actions. "Then what do you want?" "A messenger," Miller replied. "Someone to take evidence of what happened on Septeris 9 back to your people. Not your commanders, they already know. But the general population, who are kept in the dark about the atrocities committed in their name." Miller held out a small data chip. "This contains all the evidence I gathered, testimony from survivors, visual records of the attacks, intercepted communications from your command structure ordering the falsification of evidence." Grechthel stared at the chip. "Why would I help you?" "Because whatever loyalty you feel toward your confederation, I don't believe you support the massacre of civilians," Miller said. "And because they abandoned you here, they were willing to sacrifice you rather than risk the truth coming out." Grecthel's mind raced with conflicting thoughts. His training demanded absolute loyalty to the Confederation, but if what Miller said was true... Grechthel stared at the data chip in Miller's hand. His entire life had been devoted to serving the Zentari Confederation. The thought of betraying his people was unthinkable, and yet, if Miller spoke the truth about Septeris 9... "I need proof," Grechthel said finally. "Not just your word." Miller nodded and placed the data chip into the terminal. "I expected nothing less." The screen came to life, displaying security footage from what appeared to be orbital platforms above a blue-green planet. Grechthel recognized the Zentari military ships immediately. The footage showed them approaching the planet under stealth conditions, What followed sickened even Grekthul's hardened sensibilities. The ships launched precision strikes against civilian centers, carefully avoiding military targets. The attack pattern was designed to maximize casualties while making it appear random, the signature of a terrorist attack, not a military operation. The footage shifted to communications logs. Grekthul recognized the voice of High Commander Vexthul, the supreme military leader of the Confederation. The attack must appear to come from Rigelian separatists, the commander said. Plant the evidence as instructed. Ensure no survivors can contradict our narrative. More footage followed. Centauri special forces planting false evidence, executing survivors, staging bodies to support the story of a Rigelian attack. Grekthul watched in growing horror. 60,000 civilians, Miller said quietly. Men, women, children, or whatever the Septeris equivalent is, all to prevent a trade agreement that might have reduced Centauri control of iridium exports. Grekthul's voice was barely audible when he finally spoke. How did you get this footage? I was there as an observer for Earth's diplomatic corps, Miller explained. When the attacks began, I went to ground instead of evacuating. Spent 3 months gathering evidence, avoiding your cleanup teams. The assassin looked at Miller with new understanding. That's why you became a hunter of our kind. Revenge. Miller shook his head. Not revenge, justice, and prevention. Your Confederation has done this before on other worlds. They'll do it again if they remain unchecked. Grekthul turned away, his mind in turmoil. His entire worldview was crumbling. The Centauri considered themselves superior to other species, not just in physical abilities but in moral standing. They viewed their rule as benevolent guidance of lesser races. But this was pure evil. Why offer me this chance? Grekthul asked. Why not just capture me like the others? Because sometimes change must come from within, Miller replied. External pressure alone won't transform the Centauri. Your people need to face what their leaders have done in their name. Grekthul thought of the suicide pill still waiting in its pouch. The easy escape. The honorable death that generations of assassins had chosen when facing capture by humans. He now understood the real reason for the pill. It wasn't just to prevent interrogation. It was to ensure that assassins never discovered the truth about their own government, never faced the moral crisis that Grekthul now confronted. If I take this evidence, Grekthul said slowly, how would I even distribute it? Central Command controls all information networks. Miller smiled slightly. During my 3 months on Septeris 9, I made contact with a resistance network within your own society. They've been working to expose corruption in your leadership for decades. They can help you. Grekthul's training screamed warnings at him. This could be manipulation, a human trick. But the evidence before him was undeniable. He had seen the footage with his own eyes. What happens if I refuse? He asked. Then I'll have to consider you complicit, Miller said, his voice hardening slightly. And you'll face trial for attempted assassination of a diplomatic officer. The evidence of Septeris 9 will still get out, but you won't be part of the solution. Grekthul considered his options. Return to a confederation that had abandoned him and was committing atrocities, take the suicide pill to escape the moral choice entirely, or take a chance on this human's offer. Why do you hunt our assassins? Grekthul asked suddenly. Why not just expose this evidence directly? We tried direct exposure years ago, Miller explained. Your government dismissed it as human propaganda, but testimony from one of your own elite assassins? That would be harder to dismiss. And the other assassins you captured? Miller's expression grew somber. Some chose the pill rather than face the truth. Others couldn't accept what they learned and tried to escape. A few agreed to help, but were eliminated by your government before they could act. And now I face the same choice, Grekthul said. Yes, but with one difference. Miller held up a small device. This is a quantum encrypted transmitter. The evidence has already been sent to 3 different resistance cells in the Centauri system. Whether you join them or not, the truth will spread. Grekthul felt a strange sense of relief. The decision had, in some ways, been made for him. He could not return to serve a government he now knew to be corrupt and evil. Yet the warrior in him rebelled against simple surrender. "What would you have me do?" he asked finally. "Return to your people," Miller said. "Use your position and knowledge to help the resistance. Your skills make you valuable, not as an assassin, but as someone who can infiltrate the highest levels of your government." "A spy," Grechthul said flatly. "A reformer," Miller countered. "Someone working to restore honor to a civilization that has lost its way." Grechthul thought of the mission that had brought him here. The casual way his commander had spoken of eliminating a human for knowing too much. The immediate abandonment when the mission went wrong. Had the Confederation always been this way, or had it slowly corrupted over time? His tongue touched the suicide pill one last time. Then, with a decisive motion, he removed the pouch and placed it on the table between them. "The contact information for these resistance groups," Grechthul said. "I'll need it." Miller nodded and transferred the data to a secure chip. "There's a cargo ship leaving for the Zentari home system in 6 hours. My security clearance can get you on board without questions." Grechthul accepted the chip, his mind already planning his approach. "Your people," he said thoughtfully. "You knew from the beginning that I was coming, didn't you? You wanted an assassin to be sent." Miller smiled slightly. "We suspected your government would eventually try to eliminate me. We've been monitoring communications from your embassy for months. You used yourself as bait," Grechthul realized. "Extremely dangerous." "Calculated risk," Miller corrected. "That's something humans excel at, weighing terrible odds and still taking action." As they prepared to leave the safe house, Grechthul paused at the door. "The other assassins sent to hunt humans, is this why they carry the pill? Because humans don't just defeat them, but convert them?" Miller considered the question. "Perhaps. Your leadership must know that every assassin who encounters the truth faces the same choice you did. The pill offers an escape from that choice." Grechthul looked back at the small silver capsule on the table. "Then perhaps it is not humans that Zentari assassins truly fear," he said quietly, "but the truth about ourselves." As they walked through the maintenance corridors toward the cargo bays, Grechthul understood why the old veteran spoke of humans with such caution. It wasn't their physical capabilities, though those were consistently underestimated. It wasn't even their adaptive tactics or unpredictability. It was their capacity to make you question everything you believed, to face truths you had avoided, to offer choices when you thought none existed. And that, Grechthul realized, was why Zentari assassins always carried a suicide pill when hunting a human. Because the most dangerous thing in the universe wasn't claws or poison or superior strength. It was doubt. And humans wielded it like a weapon.